Hey guys, Troy Francis here with another video. So last week I did a video on the channel and I was talking about an ex-girlfriend of mine who I was with very briefly, who now, quite soon afterwards, has gone on to get married and apparently she's going to have a baby as well. So I told that little story and then somebody messaged me in one of my groups, one of the private WhatsApp chats that I'm in, and said, I agree with this video, Troy. So how does one prevent oneself from getting too attached to a woman only to get hurt further down the line? That was the gist of it anyway. It's when he said, I agree with this video, I think what he meant was, I agree with the underlying notion that women can and will often be very emotionally ruthless, okay? In terms of relationships, they do seem to have this ability to move on from the carnage of a broken relationship much more quickly than guys do. Guys seem to hold on to the romance of these things for a lot longer, whereas women appear to be very pragmatic and able just to switch their feelings off onto the next one. Is this guy gonna facilitate where I want to be in my life? If so, that's great. I go with him and we forget about the past. All right, now that's being massively oversimplified, and obviously there are different circumstances, and I'm not saying women don't suffer from breakups, because obviously they do, and I'm not saying women aren't upset if they split up with somebody, because obviously they are and they can be. But in the main, looking at it on a surface level, it does seem like women are much more capable emotionally of getting through these things and actually moving on pretty damn quickly, whereas guys can be still mourning the loss of a partner, a girlfriend, years later, or a wife or whatever, like years and years later. Still, it's on their mind, it's something they think about a lot, and they can't rid themselves of those feelings. Whereas women, it seems to be different. And there are theories for why this is the case. Rollo Tomasi has an article, or maybe a few articles, about so-called war brides. And this is the idea of, you know, at a time of instability, both geopolitical instability and economic and social instability, when it was likely that the menfolk would get taken away, maybe have to go away to war, maybe get invaded and killed, then biologically for women, it was a useful facet to be able to move on quickly, okay? When, you know, the husband is taken away, maybe he's killed, and the woman is then forced to, or put into a relationship with somebody new, you know, maybe from the conquering tribe. In evolutionary terms, it's useful for the species, for the woman to be able to accept that new reality and kind of just get on with it, okay? And again, this is very, very crude, and it's a very sort of crude way of putting it, but I hope you understand what I'm getting at. There's a sort of, you can see the kind of sense that makes, the sort of evolutionary value of being able to cut off quite quickly and cut off without too much emotion. Online, it's been called the light switch effect. Okay, the light switch effect. So women can turn on and then off again, like you turn off a light switch. She's really, really into you. She's crazy about you for a period of time. And then suddenly, click, and it goes. And it's as if you never existed. And maybe she's on to the new guy. She's probably on to the new guy, whether you know about it or not, okay? And for men, particularly men who aren't very experienced and don't know a great deal about this stuff, and frankly don't have a lot of abundance, that can be a very disconcerting thing. That can be very, very difficult to take. Why? Because we want to think it's something special. You know, those times we walked to the park, you know, me and Julie, you know, we walked down to the park together, we held hands, we looked at the sunset, we watched the sea, we had that beautiful meal overlooking the Mediterranean, we smelt the salty breeze coming through the air, we watched the sun go down, all those kinds of things. We want to imbue those experiences with meaning, and of course they do have meaning. They had meaning at the time. Doubtless they had meaning for her at the time as well. But when the time has come for the relationship to end and she moves on very quickly, suddenly it seems to us as if all of those things had no meaning or value whatsoever. Those things were entirely worthless, and that's an incredibly painful realization. That's an incredibly painful place to be for men, because as I said in that video, men are the true romantics, okay? We tend to hold on to these details. We tend to hold on to this fantasy of what the thing meant you know, what the significance was of the coupling, right? Not just sex, not just companionship and intimacy, but something more than that. It felt like there was some sort of almost spiritual aspect to it, okay? Now, I'm not saying, again, that women don't feel that. Obviously, they do. But it does seem that women have this pragmatic ability to move on and to sort of disassociate from that pain more quickly than men, okay? Again, many outliers exist, caveats exist, but overall, that seems to be the status quo. And the reason I say that is through my own personal experience and also the experiences of close friends of mine and colleagues of mine, and also the experiences that I hear from working with guys all over the world. This seems to be a phenomenon that holds water. You know, women are able to disassociate and move on pretty quickly, okay? So with that being said, and in regard to the question that this person who follows me on, who's actually in one of my courses and who's in one of my WhatsApp groups, the question that he asked is, okay, so if we accept this as the reality, then how does a guy insure himself, I suppose, against getting hurt? You know, what do you do so that you don't just fall in love with the next woman that you meet, and then 2 years down the line, she breaks up with you and she just, you know, goes off with somebody else, and it's as if it never happened, right? How do you insure yourself against that? How do you hedge against the potential pain that that might cause? And the answer is, you can't entirely, unfortunately. There isn't any way to completely inure yourself to the potential pain of that happening, okay? Because if you like her, if you're into her, and if you have shared time together and shared experiences together and shared, let's face it, a part of your life together, which is incredibly valuable, whether that's 2 months or 2 years or 2 decades, that's incredibly valuable because you only have a very limited period of time on this planet, and then you're going to go, and to share that time intimately with another human being is a special thing. All right, we don't necessarily think that at the time, but it really is, because time is our most valuable asset. It's ending 1 minute at a time, and really we should be very careful about who we choose to spend that time with. But you've given a portion of that time to somebody else, and now suddenly they're not in your life anymore, and that can be very painful. So it's not, I think, entirely possible to completely inure yourself to that kind of pain. I don't think that's realistic. However, what you can do is make it less significant in the grand scheme of things. And the first way that you do that is the old chestnut, having some abundance, okay? Because if you have abundance in your romantic and dating life, okay, and that is to say, not that you're necessarily sleeping with other people or seeing other people or even talking to other people, but if you know from the very depths of your soul, from the very depths of your being, that, look, this isn't the end of the world, that Sheila's left me, because, you know I can go out and this month, I'm going to meet somebody new, and we can get something going, and that's going to be great, okay? It may not replace the original woman. It may not replace Sheila, with whom you spent all of those wonderful hours and days and weeks, but it's going to go some way towards filling that hole. And the problem is, I remember splitting up with a girlfriend many, many years ago, a couple of decades ago, when I was very young, and she was really the first girlfriend that I'd ever had. And so not only was I suffering from the pain of her suddenly not being part of my life anymore and wondering about what she was doing now, who she was seeing, who she was with, but on top of that, I also had the pain of not knowing if I'd ever be able to meet anyone else to replace her, because I had no confidence in my dating ability. It was kind of a fluke that I'd met her, and I had no confidence in my ability to meet somebody else to kind of replace her. Not that you can replace somebody, but you know what I'm saying, somebody else who would fill that void in my life. So it was doubly painful and doubly hard to take. So at least if you tick the box of abundance, that is to say, you have developed the skills that give you some certainty that you're going to be able to go out there and meet somebody new, that is going to help you a lot, okay? That takes the real edge off the pain. It doesn't take away the pain entirely, but it does take off the edge of the pain somewhat. Now, the other thing, and these things are interconnected, but the other thing is that you should be very, very cautious about who you are falling in love with. That is to say, who you are giving that level of affection to, all right? And again, abundance really affects this, because what you don't want to be doing is being the guy who, you know, you meet a new woman maybe once a year, you know, you luck out, you meet somebody new who likes you, who's prepared to see you naked, and vice versa. And you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. But it's kind of happened by luck. And so immediately, or very, very quickly, you fall in love with her, basically, or you want to make things official very quickly. You want to make her your girlfriend very quickly. You want to fall into relationship, girlfriend, boyfriend territory with her very, very quickly, because this is such an unusual thing to happen to you that, well, why wouldn't you run at that chance, right? Why wouldn't you pursue that with all of your might? That's not what you want to do either, because you've got to vet. You've got to be a little bit careful about this. You can't just be giving yourself away emotionally to anybody who happens to walk through the door. Because a problem, and this is a big problem actually, is that if something comes to fruition too quickly, you know, and by that I mean if she seems to be really into you very quickly and everything moves very fast, that could be a good sign. But often it's a bad sign, because often there could be an element of love bombing going on there, where she has effectively ensnared you by making everything seem so super cool and super great and everything at the beginning, but actually things are going to go wrong down the line. And you certainly don't want to be rolling over and just exposing yourself emotionally to a woman like that, who it might turn out doesn't have your best interests at heart, okay? Which is why it's always better to be guarded in the early stages of a relationship. And I say that loosely because a relationship can take many forms, but when you guys are starting to hang out together, you're starting to spend time together, maybe it's moving towards regular dating. Well, I mean, my advice would always be keep things very casual at the beginning, kind of see how it goes, and then as time goes on, you can start to sort of formalize it a bit more. But you don't want to be having the conversation with her to say, hey, listen, can we be exclusive? Can we be boyfriend and girlfriend? You want to wait for her to bring that up, and probably you want to be resistant to it for at least the first couple of times, because you want to be really sure that this is somebody that you can trust yourself with, or that you can trust your vulnerability with, if that makes sense. And even then, even if you've been with her for a year and a half and you think, yeah, she's a good one, she's a keeper, whatever, she's wifey material, as people say, even then, there's no guarantee of what's going to happen. But at least by that stage, you might be a little bit more sure of your footing, which is good. But on top of that, again, you want to have that sense of abundance as well. Because even if, with the best will in the world, she's the greatest, the sweetest girl, she's got your best interests at heart, but then something goes wrong, something happens, down the line, she decides to leave for some reason, and you're left high and dry, okay? If you don't have that abundance, if you don't have that sense of the ability to go out and replace her, quite frankly, because, look, it sounds harsh, but she's going to replace you. So if you don't have the ability to do the same thing, it's just going to make the thing doubly painful. So the bottom line is you need to get experience. You need to have a dating strategy in place so that you are at least relatively confident that you can meet new people, okay? The answer to all of this stuff is leveling up as a guy, okay? The answer is fashion, fitness, social etiquette, social game ability, understanding social dynamics, plus looking at your hormones. There's all of these things that we teach. That is the answer, okay? Because you need to be completely optimized as a guy in order to really ride the waves of this very, very turbulent dating marketplace that we're all in right now, okay? So if you are not confident of your status as far as that stuff's concerned, if you think, well, actually, I don't have abundance and I'm not very confident about meeting new people, and I do tend to fall in love too quickly, and I do tend to give my emotions away too quickly. If that's you, then you need to address this stuff. And ideally, you want to book a call with me. There's a link below. You can book a free call with me and we can have a conversation about how to move forward with it. But leveling up is always the answer, okay? We're in a very, very turbulent dating marketplace, and we need to shield ourselves against that, okay? And the way that we do that is by transforming as men and becoming better men, becoming the best versions of ourselves. And moreover, knowing how to present that to women in the dating marketplace, okay? The product can be amazing, but if the marketing is no good, you're not going to make any sales, okay? So the marketing, which is effectively game, you need to be on top of that stuff as well. Anyway, do subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Give me a like, write a comment beneath. As I say, you can jump on a free call with me. There's a link below. Get on my free email list. There's an email subscriber list. Again, link below. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.